Superstore might be one of my most favorite shows to have come out in the last few years, and its final season definitely pushes it up there. If you've never seen the show before, then the best way I can describe it is this. It's a socially conscious American sitcom that follows the day-to-day struggles of a large diverse cast of eccentric but charming employees at a supersized megastore akin to a Walmart. But the show is more than just its general premise. It's the kind of sitcom that makes you take a step back and think about your life and the world and society around you, even when laughs are its primary focus. It's the same kind of feeling I got from The Good Place, which is also one of my favorite sitcoms from the last few years. Both shows are able to weave insightful social commentary into their plots without sacrificing any of the humor, and their ability to do that elevates both shows to a considerable degree. If your show is able to be equally thought-provoking just as it is funny, then you've got a genuine gem on your hands. And Superstore is a diamond.
Do you have any room in your car? I think maybe my water just broke.
Oh my God. No, you're not due for another 3 weeks.
Oh yeah, that's right. Never mind.
Thanks a lot, Amy. You got it on my shoes.
Oh no, those shoes were so cool.
Okay, come on.
The show's hilarious cast and the silly shenanigans they get up to are great and are a true highlight of this show. But there's something much deeper that this show contributes to our cultural landscape than just memorable comedy. Its provocative social discourse is what makes this show incredible, and it's what makes its final season matter so much to not only me, but to our greater society as a whole. Superstore is a show that covers really important issues that the underprivileged of all kinds face. From highlighting the terrorizing oppressive force of ICE against undocumented immigrants, to exposing the eternal struggle of the underprivileged from breaking free from low-wage labor, to emphasizing the inability for working-class Americans to afford extracurricular activities for their children, and so on and so forth. At its heart, Superstore is a working-class television show that criticizes American labor practices and capitalist culture. It constantly points out what's wrong in our society, and it shows us just how hard it is to change any of it. That's what really made me like this show. Its realism and accuracy in portraying the faults and failings of our society is second to none. The little guy doesn't always win, and it's often the exploiters who do, and it's a perfect picture of what it's like to be underprivileged and what it's like to be a working-class American in this day and age. We just don't win very much, and it's hard to see if and when we ever will. But that doesn't take away from the optimism we can find and the optimism we can seek as a struggling group of people. That's where the real beauty of this show comes from. Finding little nuggets of hope in our daily struggles and getting our wins where we can get them is what we can strive to do. And that's where we can make a difference. Maybe we won't quite change the entire world just yet, but we can make small differences in our own lives and in our own communities that might just be enough in the grand scheme of things. Jonah, the most socially conscious character in this entire show, almost never loses his hope even when the world steps down on him and what he stands for. He doesn't just accept a world where he and other working class people are destined to lose to corporations, to billionaires, to uncaring politicians, and to all the evils of life forever. He picks himself back up again and tries to make a difference. And even when he fails, he can still find moments of good interspersed with those moments of bad. And that's where Superstore is at its strongest. Nothing exemplifies that feeling of finding tiny glimmers of joy and hope in an ocean of problems more than Superstore's final season. It's a powerful portrayal of what it's like to be a working-class American, and that's why we're going to take a deeper look as to why I think that Superstore's final season matters so much. So without further ado, let's take a look at Superstore's 6th and final season, the pandemic season. Superstore's final season was produced several months into the pandemic, so it was only fitting that the show incorporated aspects of the pandemic into the overall plot structure of the entire season. It was surreal and mortifying to watch the opening episode and get taken back to the times where people rushed out to buy toilet paper for some reason. And as the episode and as the season progresses, you just see more and more ridiculous happenings. And once you realize that these aren't just silly scenarios imagined by the creative team, it's honestly more hard-hitting than you would think. We're living in really tough times, and I hope that if someone watches this video in the far future, things aren't quite that rough anymore. With that being said, I actually want to focus your attention not on the pandemic's wide-reaching destructiveness as a whole, but rather more so focus on its specific ill effects on the working class. Because like I said earlier, Superstore at its heart is a show about the underprivileged and the working class, and that's where the show makes its greatest comments about society. Think of things like how our society put essential workers at risk. Despite me calling this season the pandemic season, it surprisingly doesn't spend too much time focusing on the pandemic itself, which is a good thing. It uses the pandemic more as an avenue to make a lot of good short gags, which lets the show make meaningful social commentary about the pandemic without overstaying its welcome. There aren't episodes dedicated to crazy anti-maskers or anything like that, and because of this, Superstore's final season has a lot of room to continue focusing on the bigger questions that have been plaguing our society for a long time. What does it mean to be a working class American? How do our leaders treat us? How does society treat us? How do we treat each other? What is life like for us? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it okay? Is there anything we can do to make things better? These questions are complex and you can't just simplify any discussion about them. It would be unfair not to look at every factor in our social and political infrastructure and culture. It really would be. But if I were to sum everything all up in one answer, I think we can agree when I say this. Life isn't perfect for the average working class American. It just isn't. And it's not the same for everyone. You can't just lump everyone together into one social class and assume everyone struggles the same way. It's not that easy. But Superstore's final season shows us that there is a collective experience we all share as working class Americans. And it's this collective experience that brings us together despite all our differences and all our struggles. The employees in Superstore are tired, jaded, struggling, lost. Sometimes sad, sometimes bitter. And they've been that way for a very, very long time. We've all been there before. We know how it feels to suffer day in and day out. Whether you work retail and you have to deal with the worst customers every day, whether you work backbreaking labor in a field or in a warehouse, whether you work tirelessly for bosses who take credit for all your hard work, you know what it's like to start viewing life in a negative lens because of your job. And if you're having a really bad day, or week, or month, or maybe even year or decade, sometimes it feels like you're trapped in a hellhole with no way out. Sometimes it feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And that's where you're wrong. That's where Superstore's final season shows you that you're wrong. There is light in that tunnel. You just need to look for it. Maybe it's tiny and sporadic, or maybe it's there in chunks. Or maybe, just maybe, you just don't see it until you look back at it all with a fresh new perspective. I want to play a clip from the final speech that Garrett gives at the end of the show. It's a beautiful speech that conveys one of the most important messages the show has ever sought to express. It's a speech spurred by another terrible loss that the working class employees in the show face, and it's a somber one. Cloud9, the store that the characters work at, is being closed down and replaced by a fulfillment center, and almost all the employees are losing their jobs. And while this sounds like a depressing, sad, and awful ending that reflects reality far too much, it manages to extract some good out of such a tragedy. It's a perfect ending to what the show wants to convey. Finding hope and goodness as a working class American even in times of strife and trouble, and even when the odds are stacked against you. And the way we would find it is this: finding it in each other. That's where we'll find our light. Even as we all suffer through these working class jobs, and even as we lose at almost every single turn, There's more to these jobs than just toiling away mindlessly. We don't have to like these jobs, but we do have to find some good in them if we want to survive. So let's listen to Garrett for a moment. He's worth listening to.
To me that this is the end. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a job. If jobs were fun, they wouldn't pay us to do it, but occasionally there were moments that weren't so bad. And for whatever reason, those are the only things I can remember right now. You know, most jobs suck 99% of the time. So you really got to enjoy those moments that don't. Those bits of fun you have during downtime.
Yeah! All right, let's get to work.
Or an interesting conversation with a coworker. Or something happens that you can laugh about later.
Oh, that's a picture of my honeymoon. Sorry about that.
Or you do something that you're actually proud of.
Looking great, guys. Keep up the good work.
If you're lucky, maybe you even get to be friends with a coworker or two along the way. Not sure what else you could want in a job.
I want to end on the cookout scene here. It's really important that this final season was shrouded by the pandemic, because this cookout scene means something totally different in the context of our times. During lockdown, we weren't able to have a cookout like this because of social distancing guidelines and rules. When the pandemic was at its peak, I'm sure everyone felt down and terrible and lost, feeling like there wasn't an end to this terror and hopelessness. And that mirrors the working class American life. The fact that the characters are able to have a cookout means that there's an end to this horror, to this depression, and to this madness. There will be a moment of relief. There will be a moment of good interspersed with the many moments of bad, even if it doesn't seem that way. And that's why Superstore's final season matters so much. It's not telling us that there's no hope to change the plight of the average working class American. It's telling us that there's a way to get through it all. There's a way to make it just a little bit more bearable. And at the end of it all, through this rough human experience, there will be some good that we can find even when it doesn't seem that way. We just have to try. And together, as a collective whole, through all our suffering and through all our hardships, perhaps one day things will be better. We just have to be patient and keep trying. Hey guys, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content similar to this. I make videos about all things writing related. I'd also like to thank my patron Edith Lopez Torres for helping make this video happen. If you'd like to support me further, please check out my Patreon. I'll leave a link down in the description below. And if you've got some time, check out some of my other videos too. I really appreciate you watching this one. And to everyone who made it to the end here, thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.